First, I just want to share that Señal Colombia y Radio Nacional, the official media partner of the conference, has been broadcasting live from the conference over the last few days. So we just want to give a really big thanks to the more than 40 people who've been here from the channel, making sure that everyone can hear the stories, listen to what you have to say. This is the first time in the conference's history that we've had a national broadcaster here. So it's a big moment, and we just wanted to let you know. Thanks. My name's Mina. I'm the chair of Harm Reduction International. You've seen many of my colleagues over the last few days. We just want to say first just a really, really big thank you for the way that everyone has shown up this week. It's been incredibly moving. We've just been incredibly inspired. It's just been wonderful. So I hope that we can leave today just holding that feeling. So in my day job, I work in sexual reproductive health, rights and justice. And so what's been incredible is hearing similar conversations, the challenge in terms of what's happening in the world of aid, increasing militarization, sort of the new levels of violence, what's happening in terms of social media and the way that that has transformed our space. I'm just really struck that there are these very similar conversations playing out. And it also reminds me that we are all part of this collective resistance. So we're all having these similar conversations, very similar communities, very similar sort of opposition. We're all a bit at the mercy of the political moment. And so I just want to bring that into this room because I think it reminds us that we're all part of something much, much bigger. And I hope that that gives us some hope. And I don't think that there's a way that we can sugarcoat the political reality, what we're experiencing right now. There are many contours of this. We find ourselves in a very special kind of gender panic for all of the outrage on identity. What we see are these sort of very dangerous actors, whether they be part of the oligarchy, part of the authoritarian set. They're this very, very particular type of people, and as much as they are using gender as sort of a dividing wedge, I think we should take pause and sort of analyse their gender a little bit. The sort of special status that they need to be able to thrive in this moment. This is a group of people that are sort of willing to burn our planet to the ground, obsessed by sort of going up in this phallus-shaped rocket into some special magic planet so that they can feel more safe. And so I just want us to think about that and feel stronger for that, because we're obviously scary to them, or there would not be this sort of this moment. Of course, they need the resources from the land to build this end times paradise. And I think I just want to reflect on the land that we're standing on and pay respect to the traditional owners of this land, and to think about how sacred that is and the resources and our own, the way we tread on this space, and just sort of bring that into the room as well. I think we can feel this kind of end times doomerism, that there is this very incredibly well-financed group of people that just want to sort of trash this world, and we are a community that is sort of very clearly impacted and very clearly targeted. And I can say even, I'm Australian, but I live in East London, even the neighbourhood that I live in, there are these vans as you go home, which has all this facial recognition stuff, and they take your photo as you're going home. And that is the reality that we live in. And we're seeing the evisceration of sort of international law and global cooperation, and we feel that in our day-to-day jobs because of the cuts to aid that we're all experiencing. And this isn't just cuts to US aid. We've heard this in a number of panels, but most of the Western governments that are very wealthy are all reducing their aid, and they're all increasing military spend. And so it's not just that impacts us in this daily work, and it's not just that we can see and feel the violence in our own communities and the over-policing, but we also can see it elsewhere. What we've seen over the last few years in terms of the genocide in Palestine, in terms of the scale of violence across that whole region, that connects to us as we're walking home and having our own photos taken. So I just, want to also bring to the moment about how all of this violence is connected and why we are sort of feeling it in these profound ways. I think, we've all learned to make these links just through the work. We tend to see things years before the public does, before media decides that it's worthy to report. We're sort of seeing things many years before, and so we have been seeing this as well. And of course, this is sort of the long arc of authoritarianism, and it's coming after drug users, it's coming after women and people that are gender diverse, it's coming after sex workers, after Black, Brown and Indigenous people, and after poor people, and also our children. But of course, we sort of know a lot of this already, but I think just feeling the energy in this room, and back to the point I made earlier that there are hundreds of these rooms and we're all fighting the same thing, I think it also is a reminder that we have to be really ambitious and we should feel that ambition. And we've been fighting for generations, whether it's in resistance to this kind of authoritarian state, whether it is around a better world for people that use drugs, whether it's if for someone who wants to end a pregnancy that they can do so safely and with dignity. It is all this same fight, and it is an intergenerational fight. And on the opening day, there was a beautiful moment where there was saying goodbye to someone very important to this community, and the son and the grandson were in the seats behind him. And I think that's a really important signal of who comes behind us and who will come ahead of us. I won't say too much more because we just have an incredible lineup of people, and we're also going to be hearing from the former president of Colombia. And so before I do that, I just want to thank you all. You're going to hear a lot of thank yous because we're incredibly grateful. But please just, enjoy the next hour or so that we have today, and we hope to see you later. And yeah, brilliant. So now we'll go to the video of the former President Santos.
On behalf of the Global Commission on Drug Policy, I would like to thank and congratulate Harm Reduction International for providing this forum to share the latest research and reflections on drug use, harm reduction, and human rights. Over the past few days, valuable insights have been shared and seeds of change sown, so that tomorrow the fruits of justice may be born. As individuals, as communities, and as a global movement, we all have the power to come together and move beyond the punitive paradigm of drug policy. In its place, we must build a new approach grounded in human rights, public health, compassion, empathy, and dignity. This work must continue. Colombia has suffered like no other country the war on drugs, which has its origins in the United Nations Convention on Narcotic Drugs, signed in 1961, and which became a war with the attack at all levels decreed by the then President of the United States in 1971. It's no secret that drug trafficking has been the main source of financing of the violence that has hit our country so hard. At the same time, Colombia has been the country that has accumulated the most experience in the fight against this problem. Through suffering and effort, we have learned to fight all the links of this evil chain. As long as there is consumption and prohibition, there will be mafias that profit from illicit revenues. This accumulated experience has taught us many lessons. One of them is that no country on its own can be successful in the fight against a very lucrative and multinational business. This is why, when I took office, one of my first actions was to call on the whole world to study together strategies different from those based exclusively on repression, which had been applied and which did not show positive results. A war that has not been won in half a century is a war lost. It was proposed that the exclusively punitive approach be replaced by a focus on human rights, public health, more education and prevention, while continuing to fight the mafias that control the business. It makes no sense that there are more prisoners in the United States for drug-related crimes than the entire prison population of Europe. We raised this issue with President Obama at the 2012 Summit of the Americas in Cartagena. He was very receptive, and this allowed us to initiate efforts in several fronts. An initiative was carried out in Panama, led by Adam Kahani, the Canadian expert in conflict resolution, who applied his method of transformative scenario planning and analyzed without prejudice or dogma the various possible scenarios depending on which path was taken in the global fight against illicit drugs. This in turn led the OAS at its General Assembly held in Guatemala in 2013 to call on the world to discuss this issue with these new approaches. And in that direction, at the request of Colombia and other states, a special session of the United Nations General Assembly was convened in 2016 to discuss the drug issue. Unfortunately, due to the opposition of several countries, especially from Asia and the Middle East, not much progress was made. It is a UN task that is still pending, but UNGAS 2016 is a good starting point. When we were in office, we sprayed and eradicated a record number of hectares under coca cultivation, seized a record number of tons of cocaine, and took into custody the largest number of heads of drug trafficking organizations in the history of the country. But despite all this effort, all this progress, we must be realistic in admitting drug trafficking has continued to finance violence in Colombia, enriching the mafias and satisfying the demand of, of consumers abroad. Sadly, Colombia remains the number one supplier to world markets. Our struggle can be compared to the effort of riding in a stationary bicycle. No matter how hard we pedal, we remain in the same place. For all these reasons, I went from being a hardliner to a pragmatic realist when it comes to the war on drugs. It is time to acknowledge that prohibition and criminalization put people at greater risk. They deepen stigma and marginalization, especially for those who use drugs or are involved in drug production and trade. The Global Commission calls on local and national governments to adopt drug policies grounded in science, public health, and human rights. To this end, we propose five key pathways. First, putting people's health and safety first. Second, ensuring access to essential medicines and pain relief. Third, ending the criminalization and incarceration of people who use drugs. Four, refocusing enforcement on trafficking and organized crime. And five, regulating drug markets so governments, not criminal groups, exercise control. Decriminalizing drug use and possession is not only the foundation of a humane drug policy, but a proven way to reduce the social and health harms of prohibition. Colombia's own experience, with over 30 years of drug decriminalization, shows how this path can enable meaningful investment in harm reduction and health and human rights based approaches. Let this final day of HR25 renew our commitment to transform drug policy, locally, nationally, and globally. The relationships built here and the seeds that have been planted will carry, I hope, will carry us forward from neighborhood streets to the highest corridors of power. Together, we can harvest justice. Thank you, and keep going.
Thank you for listening. And we mentioned earlier about how much it's meant to have so many people from our community in solidarity. And as we, just before we started, we were sitting up here and I lost count of how many people came to take photos of our next speaker. So everyone already knows who it is when I say that. So with no further ado, I'll invite Anton up and the rest is yours. So please, over to Anton. Thanks.
Hola, buenos dias, hello, dear friends, allies, comrades. It is an honor to stand here today, not just as an individual, but as a part of a global community of people who use drugs and global harm reduction family. The theme of this conference, Sowing Change to Harvest Justice. It speaks directly to our lives. For decades, we've been sowing change, often in silence, often in crisis, but always with courage. But let me tell you a little bit about my life through numbers. Usual format for the conference. I'm 45. I began using psychoactive substances at 14 and began injecting at 16, but received my first clean syringe from a harm reduction program at 23. The same age I found out I was living with HIV and hepatitis C. I lived on the streets. I survived 6 overdoses. I was denied medical care 3 times. I lost 2 jobs because of my status. I could have gone to prison 4 times. Lost enormous number of my friends in the war on drugs. I had over 50 failed attempts to treat my drug use before I became one of the first 30 lucky opioid agonist therapy patients in Ukraine. And today, I'm here, alive, leader of my community, and a loving dad of 6-year-old son. That's what solving change looks like. We solve change when we hand out naloxone and clean syringes, not as charity, but as resistance. We solve change when we build peer-led networks in the ruins of collapsing health systems. We solve change when we survive and bring others with us. And now we are calling for the harvest. We need to ask ourselves, how is this big conference help a woman who used drugs, who's about to face sexual violence in the slums of Chibolia in Lusaka, Zambia? How is our being here enhance the social well-being of a person who uses drugs on the streets of Jakarta, Indonesia? How is our being here given autonomy to the peer educator who's now intimidated by a projector and threatened not to be paid their stipend? Because justice is not being invited to speak, but never truly heard. Justice is not funding harm reduction while defunding the communities who built it. Justice is not seeing our names in reports, but never in budgets. Justice means community-led harm reduction is funded, respected, and protected. Justice means our lived experience is recognized as expertise. Justice means no more policies about us, without us, anywhere, ever again. Today, our future is under threat. Cuts to US harm reduction funding, recent letter from the Global Fund about the activities put on hold and 30% cut, uncertainty in the Robert Carr Fund, shrinking space for community voices. We are being asked to do more with less, while overdose, HIV, hepatitis, and criminalization rage on. In Eastern Europe and Central Asia, laws targeting civil society are criminalizing even the word advocacy. In Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, and soon Kazakhstan, NGO laws are silencing us. What we've built over decades is being dismantled, and we are being told to survive without support. Meanwhile, in Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, people who use drugs are still locked in abusive treatment centers, imprisoned, denied medical care, forced into withdrawal, given no food, no rights, no dignity. That is not harm reduction. That is torture. But we are not only victims of violence. We are architects of change. From Volna in Ukraine, working under the bombs, to INPUD in Latin America, from Nairobi to New York, we are leading the most radical work in harm reduction because we are doing what systems refuse to do: care, adapt, resist, survive. Bogota has reminded us of this truth, that el buen vivir is not a theory, but a practice, that mutual care is resistance, that we don't need permission to love and protect one another. And I want to thank Colombia and Colombian people for love and protect over the days of the conference. But I want to ask something, Colombian government. You won an important diplomatic victory at the recent meeting of the UN Commission on Narcotic Drugs, which give the world a chance to rethink global drug policy and finally end the war on drugs. But there is no stopping. Don't lose track. And I ask you to support financially the organization of the UN High-Level Panel on Drug Policy, an important step that will allow us to move forward and not lose this success. As one of our community members said, together we are stronger. And we have to be strong. We all want a better future, so we must demand it. Friends, we need each other. Friends, people, I want to hear you. People of all communities, give me noise. I want to hear you. Thank you, my harm reduction family. And now, women, I want to hear you. Women who use drugs, women in harm reduction. Anti-prohibitionism and narco-feminism forever. So, let this be the message from Bogota. If you want to sow real change, fund us. If you want to harvest justice, center us. If you believe in harm reduction, follow our lead. This conference, this movement, this moment, it is ours. We have sown change in the hardest soil. Now we stand together to say we will harvest justice, no matter what it takes. Let's move forward together, louder, bolder, unstoppable. Thank you, Bogota. Thank you, Harm Reduction 25. And thank you to every person who continues to fight, even when no one is watching. Thank you.
We were like, oh my God, it's going to be 10 minutes. But that felt like 2, so magic, magic, magic. Okay, so now we're sort of bringing these beautiful examples. You've seen them all week and you've been part of those examples too. And we've got a very special moment. You're going to have to do that in 1 second, so I don't even know if it's worth it. But we're heading into an award now that is very, very meaningful and important to this community. So I just want to invite Mo to come and spend a moment to tell us a little bit about the award, and then we'll hear from the winner. Thanks, Mo.
Thanks so much, Mina, and it's a privilege to be here, and thanks so much, everyone, for coming. So I'm Mohammed Karmuzian from the Center on Drug Policy Evaluation in Toronto, Canada, and I'm honored to be presenting announcing the winner of the Brooklyn McNeil Ray of Hope Award for this year. This award aims to encourage high-quality research projects to support evidence-based advocacy efforts in drug policy reform. But the award is named after Brooklyn Ray McNeil, a vocal advocate for safer injection sites and vital support in the lives of many people who use drugs in Toronto, Canada. As a harm reduction activist whose life was cut short due to an opioid overdose, Brooklyn's spirit serves as a reminder of the need to conduct research and evidence-based advocacy to prevent the senseless loss of lives that could be avoided with drug policies grounded in evidence and human rights. So the winner of this year, drum rolls? No drum rolls? Okay. The winner of this year is Poonam Dalakoti from Nepal, who unfortunately could not be with us due to the racist, unjust visa regulations. But we've been fortunate enough to have her send us an acceptance video, and I'm hoping that we can play that video now.
Hello everyone, my name is Poonam Dhaulakoti. I am originally from Nepal. I am truly humbled and grateful to be selected as the recipient of the Brooklyn McNeil Ray of Hope Award for my HR25 abstract. The title of my abstract is Enforcement of Harm Reduction, Prevention, Healthcare and Treatment Service for Women Who Use Drugs in Nepal. This recognition means a great deal to me as well as for the community that I work for. Through my role as a program officer at Recovering Nepal, which is the National Federation for People Who Use Drug here in Nepal, I have been leading a gender-sensitive harm reduction initiative across 4 districts of Nepal, including Chitwan, Makwanpur, Bake, and Rupandei. So our work mainly focuses on outreach services, providing needle syringe exchange program. We do have refill services, drug treatment support. Although I am unable to attend HR25 conference in person, I am very much grateful for HRI team as well as Center on Drug Policy Evaluation team for this award. Thank you for believing in our work and for amplifying the voice of women who are the often left behind. My well wishes are for HR team, CDPE team, as well as all the HR attendants. So lots of love from Nepal. Thank you. Thank you so much for this award.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And you'll see we're having a bit of musical chairs. We've got a lot of incredible people, and it gives me great pleasure now to ask Juan to come up, please. Juan is an expert in terms of what is both happening in Colombia in terms of community-based harm reduction. So for those that don't speak Spanish, please pop the headphones on. Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y todas. Voy a hablar despacio por lo de la traducción. Los bogotanos hablamos a una velocidad 1000. Mil disculpas por eso. 2, hay muchas cosas por decir de esta conferencia, hay muchísima información, pero me voy a remitir tal vez en estos 10 minutos a 3 cosas que para mí son muy importantes. También agradecer a los periodistas y a las personas que fueron hoy a visitar la Fundación Procrear en el barrio Santa Fe. Hoy no ha sido fácil porque tenemos la minga indígena preparándose para mañana el 1 de mayo y también por las condiciones a veces del territorio. Y a mi equipo que los recibió y organizó, digamos, una acción allí comunitaria, que es lo que nosotros hacemos todos los días. Muchísimas gracias a las personas que fueron y se acercaron a lo que nosotros hacemos desde la comunidad. Hay que, obviamente, saludar y brindar un cordial saludo a los aliados, a los colegas, a los cómplices, hasta a los críticos de la reducción del daño, porque hay que invitarlos a este discurso. Para los organizadores de la conferencia, pero también quiero agradecer al Comité de Impulso, a las organizaciones del Comité de Impulso que hicieron y lograron este espacio. Son 10 minutos también para agradecer a los medios de comunicación, ya lo hicieron acá, pero quiero reiterar que frente a lo que vive hoy Colombia con los medios tradicionales en términos de la mentira, en términos de la falsedad frente a lo que está haciendo este gobierno, encontrar aquí a RTBC y a Señal Colombia nos posibilita acercarnos a las comunidades con esta conferencia desde la verdad, desde la realidad y desde lo que dicen los expertos y las comunidades de la reducción del daño. Entonces yo pido para eso también un saludo muy especial en términos de contar con medios de comunicación también alternativos que nos posibiliten llegar de otra manera a las comunidades. Y finalmente, en tantos agradecimientos, pues debemos, digamos, como comunidad, como organización social, agradecer al Ministerio de Justicia, al Ministerio de Salud, a la Oficina de las Naciones Unidas contra la Droga y el Delito, por empeñarse en abrir los espacios para que la comunidad de base estuviera aquí, y si no, no hubiera sido posible traer algunas experiencias posibles de lo que está pasando en el país, en Bogotá, en Medellín, en Cali, frente a cómo desde las comunidades hacemos el trabajo de base comunitaria. Cuando hablamos de organización civil, cuando hablamos de organización comunitaria, tenemos claro que estamos haciendo articulaciones y vínculos con la institucionalidad, pero también que hemos realizado grandes aportes reflejados en diferentes documentos, así como en acciones y, por supuesto, en nuevas narrativas y en formas de abordar la reducción del daño. Que han pasado diferentes experiencias, las he oído y las he escuchado en diferentes talleres y paneles, dispositivos comunitarios, centros de escucha, zonas de orientación escolar, experiencias comunitarias que hemos podido articular desde el año 2002, cuando alguien se refería a un modelo de intervención comunitaria que se estaba desarrollando en el país. Y que difícil, digamos, olvidar el aporte que ha hecho la red Raíz Colombia o Raíz Latinoamérica, red americana de intervenciones a situaciones de sufrimiento social, que ha estado aquí presente desde 2002, ayudándonos a que la institucionalidad entienda a qué nos referimos con la escucha activa, a qué nos referimos con el contacto directo en la calle, a qué nos referimos con las acciones seguras para la comunidad. Entonces, digamos que hemos hecho un ejercicio ya de mucho tiempo frente a este tema y frente a otros, y como, digamos, hablar de la organización comunitaria implica lo comunitario. Quiero, y no lo escuché, digamos, en ninguna de las intervenciones, el enfoque de derechos humanos, bien, todo el mundo hablamos de eso, hablamos del enfoque, digamos, de salud frente a la reducción del daño, pero yo voy a plantear aquí un tema de por qué no empezamos a hablar entonces también del enfoque comunitario que recoge, digamos, todas esas escenarios de salud, de prevención, de acompañamiento. Hablar también del enfoque comunitario y empezar a decirlo cuando hablamos de la reducción del daño en términos del enfoque de derechos humanos, implica reconocer de abajo hacia arriba los diferentes ejercicios que se están haciendo desde la participación activa de las comunidades, desde la visibilización de lo que se hace por parte de las comunidades, de ese enfoque de que tanto hablamos y estamos ahora, digamos, escuchándolo ya en los ministerios, de ese enfoque desde abajo hacia arriba. ¿Sí? Entender eso no es solamente decirlo, sino un poco dibujarlo, mapearlo, ¿cierto? Construirlo y entenderlo desde lo colectivo, desde lo comunitario. Y eso no implica que separemos, digamos, la institucionalidad, sino reconocer y visibilizar lo que se ha hecho desde las organizaciones. Complacido, yo escuché al expresidente Santos. Y esas 5 propuestas que él nos hace, obviamente están, digamos, involucrando, digamos, un ejercicio muy tradicional desde arriba hacia abajo, ¿cierto? Pero falta un discurso más de nuestro sentido. Por eso hablar del enfoque comunitario sea una posibilidad que empecemos a abordar en estos lenguajes, en donde le damos vida y forma, digamos, a eso que se hace desde abajo, no solo desde que nos reconozcan en la foto, en los textos, sino en las dinámicas propias del hacer y la cotidianidad de los territorios. En este congreso he escuchado hablar harto sobre educación entre pares, gestores, líderes, espacios liderados por usuarios de sustancias, personas con experiencia en consumo para informar sobre los riesgos, sobre la distribución, espacios seguros, así como programas de intercambio y etcétera, de cosas que conocimos, de experiencias que nos nutrimos, ¿cierto? Y entonces me llamó la atención el segundo momento que escuché y que me quedó sonando y que me llevaría a las comunidades. Y se lo escuché a muchos expertos, y es la generación de evidencia científica, y a algún expositor le escuché hablar, y que si se hablara de lo comunitario de evidencia científica y de calidad, y me quedó resonando cuando dijo y de calidad. ¿Cómo le digo yo a la comunidad? Vamos a empezar a generar evidencia para conseguir recursos, para contar lo que hacemos con evidencia de calidad. Y entonces hago mi segunda propuesta. Porque esto es como para, digamos, a mí me invitaron, bueno, vamos a cerrar y vamos a mirar qué pasa de aquí a los próximos 2 años. Y si soy invitado a la próxima conferencia, puedo decirle, bueno, ¿qué pasó con esto? ¿Y por qué no hablamos de evidencia de base comunitaria? Hablar de evidencia de base comunitaria, entonces, es pensar que en Colombia hay unas 15 organizaciones que estamos acompañando que se la están peleando por, aquí están mis 2 compañeros de la Fundación, que es un proceso que ellas también han motivado, de hablar de economías populares, en donde pensemos que las mujeres que consumen, los hombres que consumen, las poblaciones que consumen, pueden generar empresa, podemos tratarlos dignamente con un salario y podemos pensar como personas y actores con unos roles que incidan en el territorio. Y tal vez yo sume ahí, frente al tema de la evidencia de base comunitaria, y pueda pegarme entonces a la institucionalidad frente a la base, a la evidencia científica y de calidad. Claro, con la persona que habló de la evidencia de calidad tengo que sentarme a hablar porque puede ser que la entienda mal, pero sí tengo que bajar esa expresión a lo comunitario para saber cómo lo hacemos. Y si no, en 2 años nos vamos a ver y vamos a seguir pensando cómo hacemos las ONGs, las organizaciones sociales, para generar evidencia científica. Retos. Hay varios retos. Ya para finalizar, tenía 10 minutos, no sé si me pase. No, todavía tengo tiempo, acabo de ver el reloj. Hay muchos retos y es lo que acaba de manifestar el compañero Anton acá, y es, el mundo está cambiando, hay un giro muy preocupante frente a la política de la muerte, y aquí me estoy refiriendo un poco al discurso que tiene nuestro actual presidente. Pero sobre eso tenemos que resistir y responder frente a la experiencia que tenemos. Cuando este gobierno ha dado tierras a los campesinos, cuando este gobierno ha reconocido lo que hacen las organizaciones en el territorio y en el campo, cuando este gobierno dice no a la fumigación, también por otro lado está reconociendo algo que los medios tradicionales no están haciendo, y es lo que se hace en los territorios. El año pasado tuve una experiencia en donde hice una consultoría sobre paz en Florencia, Caquetá, en territorios azotados por la guerra, pero hay unas experiencias productivas, socioproductivas, culturales, sociales, de mujeres que han sido guerreras, que fueron guerreras o fueron víctimas de la guerra, a donde se han unido para trabajar y hacer empresa y hacer producción. Si visibilizamos esto, ¿no nos ayuda? Y entonces le ponemos la pata a esa política de la guerra, que varios aún aquí en Colombia la quieren, y yo prefiero la política de la vida con todo lo político que quiera o con todo lo político que crea que es posible, con todo lo que suene de izquierda, pero prefiero la política de la vida en la reducción del daño. Otros desafíos es la búsqueda para nosotros de financiamiento. Y la guerra nos ha afectado, la guerra, claro, las guerras nos han afectado, las diferencias en el mundo nos han afectado, las decisiones en el norte nos han afectado. Y Colombia se ha visto víctima del cierre permanente de organizaciones sociales con muy buen trabajo, porque el tema del tema de la economía nos ha hecho cerrar. Y eso también hay que evidenciarlo, porque eso afecta, digamos, el interior del trabajo comunitario, la fuerza y el núcleo del trabajo comunitario. Reconocer en los territorios rurales y en el campo, en lo verde del mundo, escenarios de construcción de comunidad, de experiencias y de conocimientos ancestrales y tradicionales y culturales frente a los temas de la coca, de otras plantas y consumo. Y me retomo al panel de esta mañana que nos hablaba muchísimo de eso. Respetando los usos milenarios y reconociendo que existen en este país y en este planeta culturas de las que podemos permitirnos aprender, pero sobre todo de quienes debemos aprender a respetar y acompañar la vida. Aquí, para terminar, quiero primero decirles que en Bogotá se viene la marcha canábica, las organizaciones sociales vamos a acompañar con las diferentes, la marcha canábica, están supremamente invitados. Y en respuesta a este congreso, unas organizaciones sociales de base están organizando el primer encuentro de sustancias ilícitas. Y entonces me dijeron, cuente eso, hermano, allá, para que estén pendientes de que vamos a tener esos 2 eventos en este segundo semestre del 2025. Finalmente, yo tengo una hija que consume sustancias, pero de la cual he aprendido muchísimo frente a mi trayectoria de vida en términos de ser víctima de la guerra, especialmente en el año 2002, de haber tenido que apartarme de mi país un buen tiempo. Y digamos que yo le pregunté a ella de qué vamos a hablar, dígame una cosa que tenga que hablar y decir. Mi hija me dijo, pide no un minuto de silencio, Pido un aplauso, pido unos gritos por los que ya no están. Víctimas por esta guerra contra las drogas. Pide un aplauso y pide unos gritos por los que han perdido su libertad por estar en este tema. Por las mujeres violentadas. Y que nos acompañemos todos, todas y todes, sin diferencias, pero sabiendo que también pensamos diferente, con criterio, con ética, pero sobre todo con una política definitivamente para la vida y para la paz. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. In the spirit of being in community and drawing evidence from community and inspiration and direction, I'd like to invite Marcela to the stage because some of you may be aware, but there's been some organizing happening in the form of a declaration, and this is a beautiful moment. So we've invited Marcela to read the declaration. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. 35 años después de la primera Conferencia Internacional de Reducción de Daños celebrada en Liverpool, Reino Unido, en abril del 2025, un colectivo de trabajadores de la salud de primera línea, académicos, activistas, hacedores de política, representantes de las Naciones Unidas, personas que usan drogas, trabajadoras sexuales y personas que trabajan sobre temas de política criminal, nos reunimos en Bogotá, Colombia, para impulsar una arquitectura de políticas de droga más justa, equitativa y basada en los derechos que protejan la vida y devuelvan la dignidad a todas las personas. Durante 4 días ofrecimos una plataforma a los líderes de opinión, ampliamos la defensa del cambio y visibilizamos las innovaciones locales en materia de reducción de daños. El tema de la conferencia de este año, Sembrando Cambio para cosechar justicia, se inspira en los esfuerzos de Colombia por reformar la política de droga y el cambio de la región para abordar asuntos relacionados con las drogas desde la salud pública, la justicia social y la sostenibilidad ambiental. La Conferencia Internacional de Reducción de Daños 2025 puso de relieve el modo en que estas políticas de droga prohibicionistas impulsan y se derivan del racismo, el patriarcado y el control colonial, al tiempo que elevó el liderazgo del sur global y la descolonización de las políticas de droga. La valentía de Colombia de alzar la voz contra un sistema de políticas de droga que engendra violencia y daño ha creado una fractura en la agenda prohibicionista, en un sistema que parecía irrompible. Esto, junto con sus esfuerzos para coordinar una coalición de Estados miembros y organizaciones de la sociedad civil que presionan para que se revise el régimen internacional del control de drogas, ha creado las condiciones para el cambio. El 14 de marzo del 2025, Colombia y sus aliados lograron la adopción de una resolución sin precedentes en la Comisión de Estupefacientes de las Naciones Unidas, iniciando la primera revisión externa independiente del Sistema Internacional de Control de Drogas. El panel de expertos independientes se encargará de elaborar una serie de recomendaciones para mejorar la ampliación de los tratados y las obligaciones internacionales en materia de políticas de drogas. Los delegados de la Conferencia Internacional de Reducción de Daños 2025 y como parte de una comunidad global de defensores y profesionales de reducción de daños y de la reforma de políticas de droga y de las comunidades más afectadas por las políticas punitivas de drogas, reconocemos que esta revisión independiente como una oportunidad histórica para evaluar críticamente el impacto de las actuales políticas de droga que han incluido devastación y destrucción a las personas, las comunidades y el medio ambiente. Esta oportunidad no puede desperdiciarse ni dejarse escapar. Los fuertes llamados de la comunidad internacional a escuchar activamente la experiencia colombiana en la guerra contra las drogas deben ir acompañados de compromisos claros y financiación para las oportunidades de reforma. Solicitamos que el gobierno colombiano, reafirmando su liderazgo, proporcione financiación para la creación, establecimiento y funcionamiento del panel de expertos independientes. Instamos a los demás Estados miembros a que patrocinen el panel, que debe estar plenamente financiado para cumplir su mandato. Subrayamos la importancia de garantizar que el panel de expertos independientes sea diverso, transparente, interdisciplinar y técnicamente sólido, y que centre las voces y experiencias de las comunidades más afectadas, sirviendo de punto de inflexión para la transformación de las políticas globales de droga. Afirmamos nuestro compromiso como comunidad de sociedad civil, académicos e investigadores de trabajar de forma productiva con el panel, así como con los Estados miembros y otros actores relevantes para garantizar que el proceso de revisión sea significativo, transparente, sustantivo y poderoso. Reafirmamos nuestro compromiso de luchar por un marco de políticas de droga basado en los derechos humanos y en evidencia, que sea equitativo y justo, por un sistema que empodere a las personas cuyas vidas incluyen las drogas y facilite enfoques innovadores de reducción de daños centrados en las personas, que respeten la autonomía, que sean aptos para los fines y que estén libres de prejuicios y discriminación basados en la moral. En nombre de la Conferencia Internacional de Reducción de Daños 2025, damos las gracias a Colombia por su valor inquebrantable, su compromiso con la reforma a las políticas de droga y por acoger la Conferencia Internacional de Reducción de Daños 2025. Hagamos que la conferencia sea un capítulo crucial en el que las palabras se traduzcan en acciones y en que todos juntos aprovechemos al máximo esta oportunidad histórica, única en la vida, de cambiar el curso de las políticas de droga, de la prohibición a la liberación, de infringir daño a elevar la justicia, de generar destrucción al empoderamiento y la protección de las comunidades. Gracias.
Wow, thank you. We've spoken a bit today about what the funding environment looks like, a world of less aid, and how it feels for us as taxpayers to know that our money that was going to harm reduction, to healthcare, is now increasingly going towards this more militarized landscape. And of course, we have a number of Western governments colluding in this. They turn these countries into rubble, and then they say, oh my God, they're not developing. How do we build their capacity? Why are they so backwards on gender or healthcare? And I can speak from the day job that I spoke of. We've in a number of these countries, we've had our clinics completely destroyed. We've had staff killed. We've had staff both in Palestine and Lebanon who are right now continuing to flee for their lives. Their homes are turned into rubble. And these were places that had functioning healthcare systems, that had commodities flowing through, that were able to access the medicines they needed, and that were just crucial to the public health interventions that deserve to be made in every country. And so it brings me much strength to invite next to speak our colleague Michelle Wazan, and Michelle works in harm reduction in Lebanon, is based in Beirut, and she's going to bring to you some of the contour of what this currently looks like. Thanks, Michelle.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Buenas tardes, good afternoon, مرحبا للجميع. My name is Michelle Wazan. I'm from Lebanon, and I work for a harm reduction organization called Skoun. Maddie asked me to come here and speak of my experience of going through crisis, and maybe share some good practices on how to best navigate it, how to best navigate a crisis. As I come from Lebanon, a country having gone through multiple crises, and which has most recently become a war zone, and I am here standing before you, seemingly still alive, you'd think I'd have it all figured out. Well, I don't. I've been fortunate enough to have a very helpful body, one that has developed a great trauma response, which is a form of narcolepsy, which has allowed me to instantly fall asleep at the sound or at the news of airstrikes, and to basically sleep through the war. That's a skill I wish I could teach you, but I cannot. These past few days have reminded me that crisis is relative and it is personal. I cannot talk of crisis without mentioning the most extreme forms of violence, like the genocide and extermination of the Palestinian people, that is happening right before our eyes. Or without mentioning the war that my country, Lebanon, has been going through, the war that is killing, maiming, and displacing men, women, and children. But crisis is also the toxic drug supply that's devastating communities in North America and devastating indigenous communities. Crisis can be going through homelessness, hunger, and poverty. Crisis can be going through the death and loss of loved ones. Crisis is the execution of human beings in the implementation of the death penalty, the killing of human beings in the name of the war on drugs. Crisis is climate change. It is environmental damage. It is dried up rivers, loss of habitat. It is stolen lands and violated bodies. Crisis can look like the funding cuts we're all going through. It can be facing shortage of essential medication. Crisis can look like arrest, like arbitrary detention, like deportation, like hate crimes. Crisis is being denied your dignity or humanity. It can be being denied gender-affirming surgeries after years of waiting, or not being able to correct your gender markers on documentation. Crisis can also look like losing your job, a breakup, a divorce, or reaching your 40s and going through the dreaded yet somehow exciting midlife crisis. But I have no words of wisdom to offer. Coming from a war zone, what I can tell you and I can easily recognize is that we are at war. We are at war against hatred, dogma, transphobia, fascism, oppression, racism, homophobia, colonialism, capitalism, extractivism, carceralism, and patriarchy. We are at war, and we have been at war for decades. But we are also the resistance, whatever that may look like for each of us. It is our duty to resist and to continue resisting. Our duty to continue speaking truth to power, to continue fighting obscurantism, to continue leading with community-based evidence and community-led evidence and ancestral knowledge, with compassion, with care, and as Aura has put it, with radical tenderness. I've cried a lot this week, reflecting on the past years that now feel like a decade that we've been going through in Lebanon. I've cried incessantly through Coquila's, Luz Marie, and Beatrice's speeches and interventions. I have cried, and mind you, I'm really not a crier, but I've cried inspired, but mostly humbled, by the kindness, creativity, strength, and courage of each and every one of you. This community, the people I don't know personally, but whose work I admire, those of you working in the shadows, those of you working under the table, those of you I cannot wait to see and hug every year or so, Those of you whose faces I know but names I cannot remember, that's another trauma response. Those who stand by each other and elevate each other's work, learn from each other, teach each other, share knowledge, resources, and wealth. Now more than ever, this community and our solidarity matters. Okay. We must continue fighting back. We must also fight our own cynicism, our own pessimism, and our own fears. And remember that this community has fought through tough battles. And even if it took years or decades, we have won so many of them. The fact that this conference is being held here in Colombia is a testament to that. I hope we can keep fighting together and resisting together, that these crises are only going to be temporary, and that in a couple of years, we'll look back and actually write case studies about them. I salute and respect each and every one of you. Muchas gracias.
I think there'll be not many dry eyes after this today. Soon we're going to be hearing from Gabriella Rodriguez, who'll be sort of zooming in from Florida on the screen. But before we do that, I'd like to invite Taylor Edelman to the stage. He leads the National Harm Reduction Coalition and the Lighthouse Learning Collective. And Taylor's going to say a few words before we hear from his colleague. Thanks.
Wow, 2 mics. I've never had that before. Hola a todos. Hello, everyone. First, before I begin, I just want to shout out all of my trans folks, all of my sex workers. I love you so much. I don't think we hear enough from you, so especially our Black and brown and indigenous trans women who are not only an integral part of our movement, you have literally created and lit the path for all of us. So I thank you. So as Mina was saying, my name is Taylor Edelman. I work with the National Harm Reduction Coalition based in the United States. I work in New York City. I'm here today to share the words of Gabriella Rodriguez, the executive director of QLatinx. Gabriella unfortunately couldn't join us at this conference, but she's entrusted me to share her powerful message, which you'll hear in a moment. I'm very honored to deliver this to you all. You can learn more about their work by visiting QLatinx.org or following them on Facebook and Instagram at QLatinx. You know, everyone's got to get their plug, right? Please check them out. So QLatinx is a grassroots, community-led, racial, social, and gender justice organization dedicated to the advancement and empowerment of Central Florida's LGBTQ Latinx community. The organization was founded in the wake of the Pulse tragedy in 2016. For those who may not be familiar, Pulse was an LGBTQ nightclub where 49 people were tragically killed and 68 others were injured. It remains one of the deadliest mass shootings by a single gunman and the deadliest incident of violence against the LGBTQ community in modern US history. Devastating. Before I read Gabriella's words, I would just like to take a moment to talk about this concept of resilience because I kind of think that's the theme that we're hearing, right? So resilience is something that has become expected of LGBTQI plus people, of us trans people in particular. Instead of this numb expectation, I think we need to envision a world where we demand the expectation that the world treats us with the dignity and respect we deserve. Everything we talk about with our principles of harm reduction. So with that, let's hear the audio from Gabriella. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Taylor, for the introduction. As he mentioned, my name is Gabriella Rodriguez. Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I want to pardon my absence for not being there in person with you due to some unforeseen circumstances, but I'm truly happy that my voice and my words can still be carried. As we've spent the last couple days together and we're now coming to a close, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to each of you for your courage, your advocacy, and your radical commitment in building a world where people who use drugs are not merely tolerated, but are celebrated, protected, and loved. At QLatinx, the small org that I lead, our mission has always been rooted in the belief that every person, regardless of their journey, their struggle, or their survival strategies, deserves access to true dignity, care, and community. Because we know that harm reduction isn't just a set of practices, but it's a declaration of humanity. It is a political and spiritual act of love, especially for those that have been pushed to the margins. And today I want to uplift the story of one of our own, Andres Acosta, a beautiful friend, colleague, advocate, and person whose path embodies the spirit of what we strive towards. And Andres' journey through harm reduction is not simply one of personal transformation. It is a reminder that when we invest in people, when we offer compassion instead of judgment, when we build spaces that honor lived experience rather than shaming it, healing becomes inevitable. Leadership becomes possible and liberation becomes contagious, even in our current social political climate. Andres has taught us that harm reduction is not just about saving lives. It's about restoring possibilities, restoring purpose, and reigniting hope. His journey inspires us to continue doing that deep but sometimes painful but always necessary work of community building rooted in unconditional support and revolutionary love. So as we leave this space today, I ask each of you to remember safer spaces don't just happen. We have to create them. With every act of care, every program we shape, every barrier we tear down, every stigma we challenge, we are co-creating a world where people can thrive, breathe, and lead. We owe it to all of the Andreses. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to everyone who has ever felt disposable to remind them that they are indispensable. Adelante, mi gente.
So we're about to come into a moment where we're going to have some fun and some lightness, and there's going to be some incredible films being shown. But I think the incredible words we've heard are this reminder again about what being in this community looks like, what it means to open up this community to others that are having very similar conversations and that are up against the same kind of opposition. A moment to reflect on just the level of violence some communities are experiencing and how we might approach that and how we might respond. I think it was it, I'm going to get it wrong, but someone said this idea of sort of the radical tenderness. And I think we know that the ingredients for resilience is that we show up with love for each other. You know, we really care for each other. We recognize that people are bringing grief to this space, and myself as well. Both my parents were injecting drug users, and my mum's just passed away as well. So I just want to bring her into the room and just take the space for that. But to also think that with all of this sort of connection and interdependence, if we don't have that, we don't have the resistance that we need. And without that, those guys that are taking that sort of their big phallus into the sky, they will win. They have sort of everything engineered and organized to win. And But we are what the reaction looks like. We shouldn't sort of hide into the technical details, which sometimes we're sort of forced into, or let's just sort of present it like this so we're not going to be offending too many. We're way, way, way beyond that moment, and I think we can sort of really come out in a way that we've never really been free to do before, because we've sort of had the stranglehold of all of the conditionality that comes with the aid that we receive and that we program with. We expect that investment. We're not saying that governments get to walk away from what they're responsible for. But we also have a different set of circumstances, and we've probably not had that for as long as I think many of us in this room have been doing this for. We've not had that before. So I think that just brings this like incredible hope and potential, and that it's a moment to be much more proud of who we are, queerer than we've ever seen before. You can see all of the intersections coming into the discussion today, that we connect to the ancestral knowledge. And for anyone who has kids, I mean, mothering is, you know, a completely radical act. So we think about how our kids join this movement as well. So yeah, I just wanted to add that piece, and some technology magic thing is going to happen, and there's this great group of people that many of you have met under the Drugreporter guys, and Peter and Isfan, they might be here now, but they have been working around the clock to somehow synthesize these voices into not many minutes. So we're going to bring those stories to you now, and then we're getting close to the end. Thank you.
Welcome to Bogota, Colombia, a city that represents global change. Welcome to the convening of a movement that has never wavered in its pursuit of social justice, restoring dignity to the global south, and transforming drug policy into one rooted in dignity, health, and rights.
Why did you choose this country?
Well, this was the choice of Naomi Berkshire, and she insisted that it come here. And I think it was a very prescient decision and very insightful because of the Colombian influence on the global system at the moment. You know, getting that resolution passed to have a review of drug policy, with Colombia leading that, with the fact that they've managed to push back against the American sort of investment in destroying the crops. Here, the glyphosate spraying, they've cut back. More than 60% of that has been reduced.
The Petro government has created a new drug policy. It focuses more in protecting people, in protecting their lives, than criminalization.
Hace 10 años, 15 años, cuando hablábamos de reducción de daños o entregar una jeringa o analizar una sustancia, nos querían meter a la cárcel. O sea, nos amenazaban con que cometíamos delitos. Y hoy en día la reducción de daños es parte de la política pública en el país y está muy normalizado ya la sala de consumo, está muy normalizado los análisis de sustancias, los derechos de las personas. Sí, cuando uno mira en el largo plazo, sí ha habido un cambio y creo que además, pues creo que también hemos ayudado mucho en ese cambio, ¿no?
Right now we are in Colombia. This is the first supervised consumption site, or DCR, or OPC in Colombia and South America. It's not just give the needles, it's not just give the naloxone or have a space to use drugs. It's the relationship that we create and the confidence and love and the empathy with the users.
Se hacen unas actividades como el de duchas, el de conseguir ropa, el de poderles brindar el refrigerio, un alimento especial cierto día en la semana.
Mi rol particularmente es hacer todo el proceso de referenciación de los usuarios teniendo en cuenta sus necesidades.
Sí, es muy satisfactorio poder ayudar a las personas, a la comunidad y sobre todo a la comunidad que como a uno lo han señalado por por ser consumidor de sustancias psicoactivas.
This is the Corporación Acción Técnica Social House. This is a project that wants to promote bills to the Congress to regulate cocaine and the coca leaf. And this is the room for drug checking service. We use reagents to test substance. And in this part, we use microscope. We check the flower to check the insects, fungus, and other microplastics. This machine to detect the THC and CBD.
As a Latin American, how do you feel about the conference being here in Bogota?
Of course, I'm very glad, you know. Of course, we will use it to illuminate this conference and try to expand the voices for all the rest of the region.
My organization is called Proyecto Soma. We do harm reduction in Peru, and Echele Cabeza gave us all the tools we needed to operate. And it's the same with other people in the region. This is like the center for harm reduction in the region.
How can you describe the harm reduction scene in Peru?
Well, it is quite small, but we have drug checking services, we have orientation services for young people who use drugs, we do some journalism, we do the curation of information.
We're based in the United States, and in the United States, naloxone is too expensive. The problem with expense is that not enough naloxone gets to where it needs to go, into the hands of people who use drugs. So what we do at Remedy Alliance is bulk distribution of naloxone in large quantities. We've distributed more than 5 million doses, mostly to underfunded harm reduction programs.
Let me just start off as an American up here. I always used to apologize for the havoc my country had wreaked with the drug war around the world. Now I must also apologize for the havoc we are and are going to wreak on the world for the next 4 years. My apologies to all of you.
The words to describe what's happening now are, it's worse than a crisis. It's a catastrophe for harm reduction funding at this point. In January, when we saw the news about the US dismantling USAID, PEPFAR was the second largest donor for harm reduction, and they were funding things like opioid agonist therapy for about 30,000 people across 9 countries by 2024. But they funded the infrastructure and the clinics and the drop-in centers. With needle and syringe programs in many countries, those have just disappeared, they've closed. But most importantly, I think to emphasize is the peer outreach piece, because if you don't have that piece, you don't really have harm reduction in a functional way.
It's killing people, it's risking people's medication, ARVs, risking them overdosing, and on top of that, it's directly impacting staff who have been doing and trying to do an amazing job. But most importantly, people are sharing needles, not getting their methadone, and feel abandoned because these are people I love and they're dying.
The global south countries, they need to start looking inside their countries to start funding services like harm reduction. But the sudden pullout of America, that was something else. Only if they had phased it out in steps, that would have made sense.
We also need to be making noise. The government, you need to rescue, you need to step up. You know, you need to divest and invest in programs that work, in evidence-based programs.
So this booth is based on our Divest Invest campaign, calling for governments and donors to move funds from punitive drug policies towards programs that prioritize community health and justice. So we know that the amount of funding going towards punitive drug policies vastly exceeds what is going towards harm reduction. We found that it's actually 750 times more, and that's old. That's not even the latest data.
Myself seated here, I've also been incarcerated because of heroin for just my personal consumption.
In Indonesia, since 2008 until 2020, on narcotic case, it tends to increase. It become overcrowding of the prison. I think around 150,000 people now.
En temas de encarcelamiento, también es una región con altísimos índices de encarcelamiento por delitos de droga, con altísimos índices de sobrepoblación penal, donde las condiciones no cumplen con los requisitos mínimos de dignidad para las personas que están privadas de libertad.
We've been collecting case studies to show you people that these approaches that prioritize communities, that prioritize health and justice work. There's examples from, well, of course, Colombia, our host country, but then there's this Housing First initiative from Chile. There's a restorative justice program from Costa Rica.
I can tell you about Uruguay, for example, where they had real kind of overcapacity in the prisons and they were arresting people for use of cannabis on a regular basis. And in 2012, I think, they were the first country in the world to legalize the commercialization of marijuana. This meant that they weren't spending money on arresting people, and so they then put money into a harm reduction approach, which, you know, has yielded great results in the country.
La coca, la hoja de coca, está reconocida como un patrimonio cultural de los pueblos indígenas en Colombia. La ley del 86 buscaba proteger y que cultivaran para su consumo, y hoy en día ha ganado un espacio y el gobierno nacional busca que haya unos usos legales de la hoja de coca.
We are here at HRI with this exhibition on the impacts of the prohibition of the coca and cocaine production chain on the Amazon basin, like illegal logging, illegal mining, deforestation, land grabbing, creating a series of governance problems and threats to the territories of traditional communities, metropolitan regions, all over Colombia, Bolivia, Brazil, Peru, as cocaine moves to national and international markets. So we need to break this cycle of corruption if we really want to promote climate adaptation. Initially, we need to legalize the plant, so the coca leaf should be free.
How would you regulate cocaine? In a nutshell.
Well, look, we need licensed pharmacy models. We need to look at a whole range of regulatory models around cocaine. But it's good to have the conversation, to have the producers, the users, suppliers. It's the critical question now is, look, what can we learn from the cannabis market for the stimulants market? It's exciting that regulation is finally on the table here at HRI.
The amount of intergenerational trauma that has been created in a country such as Colombia, in which more than the war on drugs, the armed conflict has basically washed us and cleaned us and our territories, that is something that has to be considered in the discussion. Any single solution for advancing in harm reduction, in legalization, in regulation, in anything, has to consider first and foremost ways of current reparation, reconciliation, coping, repair of social fabric based on the excessive and just absurd amount of trauma that communities have in Colombia.
We live in a world where there is less respect for multilateralism and many governments are opting out from international organizations. What do you think about this process?
The decision of states maybe of stepping out from multilateralism doesn't mean that the rights are not recognized. Even though states are still bound to the human rights treaties, they are still obligated to comply with them.
What is it that we should do differently than before? Do you have any recommendations to activists?
We never succeed, really, unless we can win the political center. That's pivotal. That means we need to use the right language that speaks to the political center. One of the great lessons and successes in European harm reduction and drug policy beginning in the 1990s and the 2000s was that the police bought into the harm reduction approach. They bought into, changing policing policies. They bought into prescribing heroin or safe injection sites. They bought into those things.
We are losing the ground under our heads. We are losing the successes and gains of all career, and that's very hard, and we are losing people. We already see that the people will die from it, and that's very hard. That's why actually here we are to support each other.
I love community care. I love how we've come together to really support each other and be there for each other. And how what the United States is doing right now is forging that for us. And so, continue collective care.
What I can say is that we survive, we are alive, we are still fighting, and I think that we can do it together.
I'm sure people recognize some of that beautiful street art, and for those staying on, I really, really recommend that you spend the time to enjoy this city. It's incredible. I'm now going to take you through, in the most, I don't know, exciting way I can think of, the many, many, many thank yous, all of the sort of time, talent, everything that it takes to bring something like this together. And so you will see in your conference book on page 15, you have all of the names of the committee based here in Bogota who made all of this possible. Of course, we want to thank the government of Colombia and Ambassador Laura Gil, and special thanks to all of their colleagues and peers, including from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We have the global program committees, incredible. Luz, Maria Alejandra, and the team at the Bogota Convention Bureau, the people that made us lunch, the people that cleaned after us, all of the people that are always invisible but just make all of this possible. To Lily, Camilla, Paula, Leonardo, Luis Miguel, and the rest of the team at Agora. Arnold for driving us miles and miles. Some of you met Arnold at the airport. To the donors and sponsors and exhibitors, and the photographers that you see everywhere, and thanks. Some all had their own really incredible stories. Eric, Thomas, Melina, and Helena for the website and design. Diego, Andres, Lugo, Vivas for their support through every stage of this conference. Drugreporter, who you saw their incredible work there. William Morales, who with every single visa application was behind, and anyone that knows how bad that job is, it sucks, it's a hard job. Michael Kessler, who brought in the media, and you saw we had the national media here. Ailish, who's become famous for the medical volunteer. My God, we really tested you. Thank you. All of the volunteers who I'd like to just stand now so we can see who you are. Please, the volunteers, they're probably still working. Thank you, thank you. I really want to thank Billy Pick, who's been my partner in crime over a pretty wild, I don't know how long, year or something. I just really want to get that in here. Just thank you so much. To Pat, I mean, this is your legacy. Everything everyone does is about your legacy. We can't underestimate it. Please stand up, Pat. Talk about that intergenerational knowledge, and we'll come to his daughters in a moment. And someone who's not here, of course, Naomi Berkshine. I mean, wow. She's really missed, and she's here, you know, in every sense of her, but she's really missed. And Colleen Daniels, it's her last day at HRI. She's watching from London. Also Natika, who's responsible for all of the virtual content, especially for those outside of the room. And Suchi, you've seen Suchi's sort of creative brilliance everywhere. Who studied political science, by the way. Marcella, I don't think we have the words to quite land. Thank you for all the connection. Thank you for the last minute cat wrangling, everything. And to the HRI team, it's a small but mighty team. This organization probably feels like it's one of those big INGOs, staff everywhere. It's a small, deeply committed team who have, I mean, you can see what has gone into just organizing this. You can see with the constant sort of messages and communications that come out even when it's not a conference moment. And so I want to just ask for all the HRI team and the trustees, Billy, Fanny, Alex, whoever else we may still have with us, please could you come to the stage so people can give you the applause that you deserve. We haven't stopped. We're nearly close, but if the team can stay here while we do those for you. Yes. So we have so much depth of gratitude. You would see ATS. This is a very, very special thank you to ATS. If ATS is here, jump up. We could not have had Colombia, we could not have had the meeting here with ATS. To Julian, Vanessa, Alejandra, Daniel, Maro, Diana, Dina, and Liliana. Is there anyone here? Please stand up. We just want to thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Please come up. And we may have a special cherry on top of all of this excitement once our cameras stop rolling. So I'm just going to, please don't leave, stay with us here. Once the cameras stop, we have a special, extra special something. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mina. That
Pleasure.
Nailed it.
Thanks.
You were absolutely flipping amazing.